Mars Day Musings with me, Danny, that witch next door. I have been struggling for a long time now with describing what it is I do for my clients and how to describe how I help people in the work that I do. It's been an interesting challenge because I have all of this tangible evidence and feedback, testimonials, words from my clients telling me, thank you so much. You've helped me so much. And how do I take that and put it into a description for someone who's never met me before and wants to learn a little bit about, like, oh, who is that witch next door and what does she do? It's easy for me to say that I'm an instructor in witchcraft and astrology. That feels right and that feels easy. There's so much more depth to it than that. And it's the depths that I'm having a really, really hard time vocalizing and describing. So on my show, That Witch Podcast, if you're a regular listener, you have heard me say so many times now, hi, I'm Danny. I'm That Witch Next Door. I'll be your host, your guide, your mentor, your instructor, your spiritual bestie in all things modern magic and cosmic living. True. It's getting us there. Does it really fully describe? Not necessarily. Some of the most frequent feedback I get from the neighborhood, from my community, inside That Witch School, listeners of That Witch Podcast, viewers on Instagram or social media that say, I just feel like I'm hanging out with my friend. And we're talking about witchcraft, and we're talking about astrology, or we're talking about spirits or spells or mindset work or life, family, work, kids, stress. I feel like we're just hanging out and talking about those things together. I've personally witnessed so many students before my very eyes over 4 or 5 years now go from knowing nothing to very little about astrology and reading a birth chart to now full on reading their birth chart, reading charts of other people, reading transit charts, interpreting how to utilize astrology in their real life. I have clients, I have listeners who have reached out to me and said words like, you've helped me more than you know. You've changed my life. I don't know where I'd be had I not found your podcast, had we not started working together. And there's this profound gratitude I experience every single time somebody says words like that to me. And there is a little disconnection of belief that happens for me somewhere in there. It's almost like an out-of-body experience. Like, oh, that's so nice for that person. Like, I'm not that person. As far as what I do, here's what I know. I take all of the parts of witchcraft and astrology that I think are total bullshit, and I explain them better, or I shift them and transmute them. I help people find a reframe, or I throw them out the window altogether. I lead with chill, welcoming, down-to-earth energy. Non-negotiable. I think that vibe and that energy and that, like, unyielding intention that I've literally had since the conception of That Witch Next Door, I think that that's where that I feel like I'm just hanging out with a friend of mine feedback has come from. More than anything. I give a big shit about doing things the right way, doing things the safe way, doing things the ethical way, doing things the open mind way. I have systems and support networks and tools in place that consistently bring me through inner reflection and growth work. So anything that I don't know I'm open to learning. And anything I feel like I do know, I'm open to learning more about or completely different things about. I'm incredibly non-judgmental. This has been described about me since I was a kid, probably. Now, I can be just like all of us. I can be plenty judgmental. Don't get me wrong. But to people that I care about, I am going to approach your deepest, darkest secret with a mental and emotional neutrality that's going to totally blow your mind. And honestly, that's very, very scorpionic. If you have strong Scorpio placements, or there's somebody that reminds you in your life that reminds you of those qualities, that person very likely has strong scorpionic placements. We are a wonderful person to tell your murder story confession to, because we're going to listen to the whole story first before we pass any kind of judgment. So see, not without judgment, but I am non-judgmental, and I bring this approach into that witch school and any class that I teach, any type of guiding workshop, into any one-on-one work that I do. I really am this safe space holder who will listen to the entire story and all of the details. Then I'll ask you questions for clarification and further context before I even consider passing any type of judgment onto it. And I'll actually do all of those things before I give you insights and interpretations as well. I am also a person who is really, really passionate about consent and the ethics of consent. And I bring those values into my personal spiritual practice and into the spiritual practices and lifestyle that I teach. I don't subscribe to things like the threefold law, like in Wicca, for example. I don't even fully subscribe to our westernized, filtered through understanding of karma. I find that our Western understanding and concept of karma is rooted in a lot of self-deprecation and not actually the law of cause and effect, which is something that I'm much, much more subscribed to. I don't believe that the whole macrocosm of our universe punishes. I believe it's this neutral, multifractal, multidimensional, organic ecosystem of sorts that's about as broadly as my human brain will allow me to visualize it and describe it. I bring this concept of neutrality into my spiritual work with people. And here's the deal. Spiritual neutrality and emotional neutrality turns a lot of people off because it doesn't turn you on. It's not flashy. It's not sexy. It's not exciting. It's not fun. It's not triggering. It doesn't induce fear. It doesn't induce a response. However, I think that positivity and negativity is weaponized against us, especially in the spiritual spaces, almost more than any other space out there, because of how much spirituality relates to our morality. So positive and negative are concepts that are part of the conversation, but there are spiritual creators that very, very, very much lean into one polarity over the other. And if we are going to evolve into further and further duality and both and energy, the more we have to get comfortable with and learn and practice emotional neutrality and spiritual neutrality. People don't like that I don't either bring all of the sunshine and rainbows into spirituality, or that I don't bring all of the demons and monsters. And I only use those terms as archetypal terms for like fears that we have. In especially the professional spiritual industry, emotional positivity, spiritual positivity, and emotional negativity and spiritual negativity are led with, and they are positions that are used and really weaponized against others and used to exploit people, especially to buy into someone's program or to subscribe to their channel or to sign up for their email newsletter or to book a reading with them or whatever it is, or to buy their candle or their oil or whatever it is. And I show up with as neutral as both and energy as possible. True shadow work teaches us this, that light is just as sacred as the dark, and that dark is just as sacred as the light. And I show up to every space in my business with that law, that concept, that value at the forefront of everything that I do. I've also talked about for a little while now, I've at least mentioned and sprinkled in here and there that I've been experiencing this deconstruction period of my spirituality and spiritual practice, specifically my witchcraft practice and my astrology practice. And over the last several weeks, I've had some really powerful realizations. In fact, I was journaling. I pulled out my Hades journal and my Hades notebook last night. They're one and the same thing. Sorry, that made it sound like they were two things. It is my Hades journal and or notebook. As I was pulling it out, I was like, man, it has actually been a little while since I've done this. And my last entry was from the end of March. And oh my God, it was borderline personal world apocalyptic. Very dark, very doomsday thinking, again, in a personal world type way. I knew that I was having a hard time during that season, winter into spring. I forgot, what it fully felt like until that is one of the most powerful things about going back and reading your journals, by the way, or re-listening to your voice notes or going back and looking at pictures or rewatching videos, is you do have the memory. It's not like I forgot that I was going through a hard winter and spring in my mental health and in my real world. I was under a lot of stress. I had the memory of having a hard time, and at the same time, until I was reading the words and feeling kind of transported back in time through emotion, right? Emotion is like a version of time traveling. Is that the most Mercury retrograde in Cancer thing you've ever heard in your life? Because retrograde has us reflecting. Mercury retrograde was in Cancer, which is emotive experiences, emotion. It's so funny. So literally time traveling through emotion. But it's true. Emotions are a time traveling experience, or can be. So I'm reading these words and I'm like rushed back into that space, into that body of that version of me a few months ago. I forgot how bad it was. And, life is life. I don't care who you are and how wonderful of a life you have built for yourself. There is always something you can point to. Usually it's much more than just one thing, but there's always at least one thing you can point to and be like, yeah, that's bothering me or stressing me out, or I'm worried about it or having a hard time, right? But where I'm at now is so much calmer and centered is definitely the word that comes through. I'm so much more centered right now. I wouldn't have been able to realize this then. All I could tell was that something was amiss. Something in the astrology community, something in the witchcraft community, like something was amiss and was requiring reevaluation and deconstruction and therefore reconstruction on my part. And there's been many things, but one of the biggest things that's come through is that astrology is a slippery slope for me. And I've actually watched astrology be a slippery slope for a lot of people. This is true of any corner of spirituality, including denominational and non-denominational. Any form of spirituality can be a slippery slope. In astrology, what I noticed, I knew I kept having this triggered pattern over and over again, but it was, and I could, I knew I was in this like repetitive cycle, but I just like could not name it. And I certainly couldn't identify where it was beginning. But being an astrologer triggers very stressful urgency in me, very damaging urgency in me, especially during a time, these last like 3-4 years, ever since we moved to New England to really embrace life on life's terms, life on our terms, embrace our natural pace, embrace our natural lifestyle. One of the biggest things I've been working on is deconstructing my urgency. So many of us are so imprisoned by our sense of urgency. Yes, capitalism, this version of this economy thrives off of it. The systems of power that are in place thrive off of our constant sense of stressful urgency. We need to have the ability of a sense of urgency. Like emergencies really do happen. Catastrophe can strike. Crises can strike. We need to be able to have the ability to have a sense of urgency about us. It's insanely excessive. We live under an absolute ridiculous level of it, though, right? Just like completely crushed by it. Just not just crushed, like ran down into the ground from it. And I have to be really honest with myself about places that trigger that in me. So something that I knew but didn't know over the last couple of years was that I had really put astrology at such a strong forefront of my business. And I had done it so strongly that I had kind of let witchcraft take not just a side seat, but like a back seat for a while. And I realized this over the last couple of years, and I started working on evening them out, if not bringing witchcraft more to the forefront. I think where I kept struggling is, like I said, I was kept having this pattern happen over and over again. I was like, no matter how much I try to let astrology be in the back seat, be this information for witchcraft to be in the front seat, to be in the driver's seat, astrology keeps making its way to driving capabilities. What is happening? And it finally dawned on me, astrology triggers a sense of urgency in me. What happens is I experience this keeping up with the Joneses almost phenomena. I feel like if I don't report to you, neighbor, about every single astrological, even astronomical phenomena, transit, movement, event happening, that you're not going to think I'm a real astrologer or that I'm a good one. And so I can't tell you how many times I've set aside valuable and exciting types of content and subjects that I've wanted to explore. And I keep putting it off and pushing it out because I have to keep up with this next thing in astrology. And if you are even a little bit of an astrologer of any level or kind, you know that that's infinite. That's what makes it such a slippery slope. If you don't be careful, that's never ending because there's so much under the unfathomably huge, massive umbrella that is astrology. The types of systems, the different practices, the different branches, the different ways to use it, every transit, every ingress, every retrograde, every void of course. Anything I just mentioned is the head of a pin in the sea of options and areas to explore and report and talk about in astrology. So something I've been working on a lot over the last few months is releasing that need, that self-imposed, I need to show up and talk about this, or else you guys aren't going to think X, Y, and Z. There are, for how big and infinite astrology is, that's how big the astrological community and industry is. And are there really crappy and shitty astrologers out there? Yeah. And we're always going to talk about spotting, identifying, putting up boundaries against the red flags in the spiritual industries, including the astrological industry. But there are so many incredible astrologers out there. And I'll always continue to refer you to what I'm learning and to recommend who I think is doing great work out there. And I have been working on giving myself permission not to put myself in this, again, weird self-imposed position to keep up with any of them. The thing of it is this is That Witch podcast. This is That Witch Next Door. I am the founder of That Witch School. This place is for the witches first and foremost, baby. And it doesn't mean it's only for the witches. You don't have to attach to that term to be in welcome, connected community with us, of course. And at the same time, it's at the forefront for a reason, because it is such a massive, massive part of who I am. So all of this, all of these different reflections, these inner revelations and realizations that have come to me slowly but surely, it's starting to rise clearer and clearer to the surface how to describe what it is that I do. One of the things that I want to start doing more often with you is sharing the stories of my experiences with my clients and with my students. I think that they speak volumes for themselves. For now, to be concise, I am really good at listening to and taking in the unique multi-fractal life that it is that you live. I'm able to take in context your personal beliefs, your personal values and morals. I'm able to connect a lot of dots and fill in a lot of gaps and cracks utilizing your personal birth chart, and help you uncover the ways that you are already your most magical self. Your intuition is already there. Your abilities are already there. Your beliefs are already there. And your entire life, the thing that you're living and doing every day, can be this gorgeous, beautiful, blank canvas. You get to take all those other factors about yourself and paint that canvas with. That's what your magic, that's what your witchcraft can and should do for your life. And I like to go about teaching that in ethical ways by not stealing schools of thought or traditions from places without crediting them or without paying respect to their origins. I am very passionate about a closed practice being closed for a reason, the same way that I feel like only a surgeon who's been through medical school and surgical residency should be allowed to physically operate on people regularly every day and get paid for it. This is a place where I teach modern witchcraft with morality, with ethics, without judgment. And we do it in a super chill, really, really fun, relaxed, welcoming vibe. So thanks for being here. Whether you're brand new, welcome to the neighborhood, or you've been with me forever, hi neighbor. I'm hoping to share more and more content like this with you here on That Witch podcast on YouTube and on the regular podcast. It's a lot easier for me to just pull out the mic and jump on a video and upload it to YouTube. There's a much, I've got a different production process for the actual podcast episodes. But for now, I am planning to continue showing up and connecting with you more and more and more. So thanks for being here. It means a lot to me. And if you would like to work together, there's lots of ways to do that. You can always book a one-on-one session with me on my website, thatwitchnextdoor.com/offerings. I offer birth chart readings, and I'm also offering astrology tutoring. I am the founder, as I mentioned before, of a just stunning magical online community membership called That Witch School, which combines safe, welcoming, genuine community with real resources, real tools of support for continuing to nurture your astrological path and your witchcraft practice as well. And of course, you can always catch me in my free content here on That Witch podcast and on social media at That Witch Next Door. I hope that you are out there, neighbor, staying safe. Of course, having as much damn fun as possible, and make sure that you stay magical out there.